Hey, thanks again, Kyle. Thanks for the invitation. Again, sorry for the delay. So today I'll talk about how we can use meditation as a tool to handle anxiety and uncertainty. So here's a rough outline for the. Yeah,
Would you
sorry.
be able to share the slides later?
Yeah. Can you see the screen, by the way?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Great. So you see this link here, bit.ly/meditation talk. That's where
Oh,
all the information is there. So if you go to the link, it's a YouTube talk, and that's where I have all the slides. You can see the slides and me talking.
oh, got
So
it.
it's a
Thank you.
subset of those slides, yeah. But I'll put I don't see the chat, but here is my email if you guys have any questions or whatever. If you can't find the link. Okay, so here's a rough outline for the talk, and because I'm late, my apologies again. I will just quickly go through some of those things, but have enough time left so we can actually have a short meditation session. So roughly, I'll talk about why this anxiety and the uncertainty we can't deal with. What are the hindrances to dealing with that, and how to attain inner peace? Like what stops us? For example, intellectually speaking, like if you just think about it, nobody wants to be anxious, I hope, and nobody wants to be. Everybody wants to handle uncertainty in the best possible, calm, peaceful way. But what stops us from doing that? Very briefly, I'll touch upon that. Then I'll talk about what exactly is meditation. So a lot of people talk about meditation, but just like so many people talking about it, there are so many definitions of meditation these days. So how does we, as this, by we I mean like scientists, specifically cognitive and neuroscientists, how do we define meditation? And then I'll very briefly present some of the scientific evidence that meditation actually does work in terms of handling anxiety specifically. And then lastly, I'll share with you a very simple technique that I've been following for almost I was 13, so almost 26 years now. And that has helped me a lot. So it's a very simple, free technique that you can try it yourself. Okay, so first of all, what is stopping us from being peaceful and calm? In other words, what is stopping us from handling anxiety and uncertainty? And I'll list 3 reasons. The first one is mind wandering, or chattering of the mind, or monkey mind, where the idea is you're trying to, in this example, in this cartoon, these 3 people are trying to work. 2 of them are somewhere else, maybe thinking about a vacation or thinking about a movie, and the third person is actually enjoying the work and totally focused on the work. And we would say these 2 guys have their mind wandering, or mind doing the chitter chatter, whereas this guy is totally focused on whatever he or he's doing. So mind wandering, the idea is that when the mind wanders without your permission, so it's a very subtle difference. So for example, let's say if you're trying to do something creative, you're trying to think outside the box, you're trying to think of a solution to a problem, where you let your mind wander. Sorry. That's different than mind wandering that I'm talking about, which is when your mind kind of takes your leave without permission. So let's say you're trying to listen to the talk right now, and hopefully you're focused or enjoying the talk. But even doesn't matter how hard you try, your mind will slip into something more interesting, perhaps. Maybe something interesting you're going to do after the talk, maybe the dinner, or some worry you may have about something that may happen, might happen tomorrow. That'll take away your attention. So that's mind wandering. The second reason or hindrance is our ability, and this is totally on us, especially these days, where we are bombarded by all kinds of information, which is mind full of stuff. So in this example, in this cartoon, you have like 4 trees and 1 sun, and the person that is depicted here is thinking about everything but the 4 trees and 1 sun. He has all kind of stuff in his head, which he or she is thinking about, whereas a dog is what we call mindful. So the person is mindful of stuff, where the dog here is portrayed as mindful, meaning he's only thinking about 4 trees and 1 sun. So that's our second problem, why we can't handle anxiety and uncertainty, is because we're almost always oversubscribed. We are bombarded by 100 times more information than we can process, probably a million times, I don't know, depending on how much you're subscribed to Instagram and stuff. So that's the issue. So mind wandering, mindful of stuff, or oversubscription. And the third thing is our ability, which is kind of quite fascinating if you think about it from neuroscience perspective. but not very useful from the day-to-day life, is our ability to swing from very happy to very happy to very sad, or very happy to very angry in a matter of nanoseconds. So we have this feelings pendulum where we kind of swing not only from one extreme to the next right away, but also we kind of keep swinging. So it's not just that these swings happen once in a while. The other problem is that not only we go to the extreme right away, but we also swing many more times in the entire day. And you can imagine when you have these kind of emotional swings, it not only take massive energy toll on our brain or on our physical health, but it can also disrupt the inner peace and inner calm very easily. So how does one deal with these three? So these are the three things I listed. One is mind wandering, where your mind kind of wanders away. Second is our oversubscription to things. And third is our inability to stay in one state, emotionally speaking. So we're never in the calm space. We're never all the time happy, but we just swing back and forth on multiple occasions. By the way, because this is a relatively small group, may I request that please feel free to ask any questions at any time. And I might be going a little faster than usual. So either use the chat window, or I'm guessing you can unmute and ask questions. I would very much love it. Back when we give lectures at Stanford, it's almost like one-way communication, but it's always good to have a discussion. So if you have any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them, or at least give my best to answer them. So why is it that these three issues bother us so much? If there's mind wandering there, why can't we control our mind? If there is mind full of stuff, why can't we stop the information flow and be mindful of wherever we are? Or similarly, the emotions pendulum. So even when we know what's best to do or what is right for us, why can't we do it? So hopefully you're convinced that these three issues are the main reasons why our attention is disrupted, and why we are always kind of in the negative space, or anxious space, or in some cases ruminative space, or depression space. So even if we know that's not good for us, why can we not bring our attention back? And the answer to this question is very beautifully given in this book, one of my favorite books by Matthew Ricard, who's this guy, the monk, and Wolf Singer, who's this guy, a neuroscientist. And these guys essentially in this book are chatting between themselves, and that's the entire book. It's a chat between these two. And they're talking about how different aspects of Buddhism and neuroscience kind of sort of relate to each other. It's a really beautiful book if you're interested in the space of neuroscience and how our brain works and how meditation helps. And in one of the chapters, Wolf, who's a neuroscientist, he asks Matthew the monk, he says, well, the people who meditate always talk about positive emotions, like focused mind, and being compassionate, and always stay in the positive state of mind, and always kind of help other people. So he said, if all these things are great for us, then why did evolution gave our mind all the negative faculties? Like, why do we get angry then? What's the point? Or why do we get fearful? Or why do we get envy or jealous? Or why did evolution give us all these negative things if they're not good for us? And so Matthew had a beautiful answer, and I thought that's perfect way of defining meditation as well. And so his idea was that the negative stuff that we see, let's say fear, is not necessarily bad. So the toxic or negative emotions, the negative states of mind, for example, anxiety or getting stressed out, or our ability to dwell or ruminate about the past, they're not themselves relatively wrong. What is essentially wrong or not healthy is our inability to switch our attention between the two. So for example, having negative emotions is not a bad thing. So in this case, he says, imagine having your attention, your ability to focus on something is your attention. So he's saying flashlight is attention. Imagine that. And imagine their negative emotions, like, depicted as trash to some people, like fear or anxiety or getting stressed out. And imagine positive emotions are represented as flower. So being peaceful, being calm. So he says that it's both emotions are there for a reason. Like negative emotions there, for example, we know fear is one of the best motivators for learning and doing better, surviving and improving ourselves. But too much fear, or when the fear reaches to a point where we can't take our attention from fear, that's where the negative aspect of the impact of the health, physical and mental health happens. So having fear is not a problem, but our inability to detach from fear is a problem. And so the idea is that having attention, if your attention is depicted as a flashlight, your ability to control the flashlight is very important. Having just negative emotions, negative states is not a problem. Having too much positive states is not a problem. It's our ability to tune in to these negative or positive states whenever we choose to do so. That's where the meditation comes in. So if we have the ability to control the flashlight, so let's say if we want to learn from something in the past, we quickly ruminate, reflect on what happened in the past, learn from it, get out of it. So if you have the ability to get in and out of these negative states and positive states, that is a perfect way of living. So it's not getting stuck on any one of them. And this control of flashlight or attention is what is given by meditation. So emotions themselves may not be toxic. It's a lack of ability to recognize which emotional state we are in. Many times we don't even realize that we're in a negative state or space. And when we realize, we try to get out of it, hopefully, but it's very hard to get out of it. And that's where meditation comes in. That helps you gain control of this flashlight or attention that you can then bounce out of whenever you want to. So that's the main idea about meditation. So if I say that what's the best way to define meditation would be then is this idea. Let's say you sit and meditate, and maybe this is your first time meditating, or maybe you have been meditating for a long time. So tell me if this definition of meditation makes sense. So you sit down, you close your eyes, and you focus on anything that you want to focus on. Maybe let's say your meditation is focus on the breath, or it's look in the darkness in front of you, or something. And the instructions are, keep your focus on something, whatever that object is. And whenever your attention wanders, you notice it has wandered away, you bring it back, you continue the focus again. It wanders, you bring it back, you continue the focus again. So this ability, this training of keeping an eye on the attention, keeping a watch, meta awareness of where you're focused on. Whenever you realize it has wandered away, you bring your attention back. You realize wandered away, you bring your attention back. And you keep doing this kind of exercise to enhance this muscle of controlling attention, right? So meditation, any meditation practice which has this ability to notice that your attention has wandered away and bring your attention back, that is the kind of meditation we talk about in science, in cognitive science, called cognitive control. So a meditation practice which has the component of keeping a focus on whatever you're doing, and whenever your attention wanders, it brings the attention back kindly and gently. Wanders, bring it back again, and you kind of stay in that state as long as possible. Whatever meditation state you're practiced in doing, if it has the component of bringing your attention back to the object and staying there as long as possible, that is considered meditation. Now, to take an opposite example, you can imagine, lying down on a beach and closing your eyes and relaxing. That's not meditation. Why? Because it doesn't have the component of focusing on something and bringing your attention back when the attention wanders. Or let's say you're listening to the music, or you're walking in a jungle or a hike, or you're biking. All these things are all relaxation, because your mind is hopefully calm and peaceful and you're enjoying whatever you're doing. You may be in the flow, but it's not meditation. Why? Because it doesn't have the component of keeping your focus on one thing. It wanders. Whenever the attention lapses, you bring it back. It lapses, you bring it back. That is the core definition of meditation from the perspective of science, cognitive science specifically. So does that make some sense? Any questions about that? And sorry if I'm going too fast. No questions? Okay, makes sense. Great. Thanks, Jack. Okay, so let me give you a quick scientific evidence of one of the hindrances I talked about, specifically mind wandering, and how it can make you less peaceful. So as I said earlier, mind wandering is our ability or lack of our ability to control attention, where your mind or your attention slips away into something other than what you want to do, and then hopefully a few minutes, few seconds later, you bring it back, and then it lapses again, you bring it back. There was a beautiful paper from Harvard, I think, Daniel Gilbert's lab, and Matthew was the first author on the paper, and they have a nice TED talk about it that you can go to this link and check out. You can also download the app that they use to track everybody's happiness scores. You can track your own happiness score, and they wanted to link how a wandering mind, whenever you're kind of less focused and have a lot of thoughts coming your way, they showed that that actually makes you unhappy and sad. And you can track your own happiness that way if you like. So the app, the idea is very simple. About 10 times or so, and you can set up how frequently the app can bother you. The app will pop up, a notification will pop up on your smartphone, and it'll ask you, hey, how do you feel right now? You can say very sad or very happy. Then it'll ask you, hey, what were you doing? You can say, oh, I was commuting, working, shopping, or something else. You can check box whatever you're doing. And the last question it asks you is, hey, were you thinking of something other than what you were doing? So if you totally focus on the task, maybe it was shopping or watching a movie, or sometimes even maybe doing the dishes, and you were totally focused on the dishes, then you can say, no, I was totally focused, but now you actually distracted me. Or you can say, yes, actually my mind was wandering about, and I was thinking about something unpleasant, some kind of anxiety, perhaps. Or no, my mind was wandering, but actually I was thinking about something pleasant. Maybe he was planning vacation. He or she was planning vacation. Or you can say, yes, but my mind was wandering, but it was thinking about something neutral, like what am I going to eat next? And that's it. That's all the data they collected. But they collected these data points multiple times over a period of a few months. They had about 15,000 people in the study across different categories and so on and so forth. And these are the main results. So first, they looked at how happy people were when they were presently focused versus when they were mind wandering, but thinking of something pleasant, let's say planning a vacation or something, versus neutral versus negative. So this is kind of obvious. I don't know if I can annotate. Okay, I can't annotate, but this is kind of obvious that when people were in the negative space, or whenever their mind was wandered into something negative, let's say anxiety about something that hasn't happened yet, or they were dwelling in something that happened in the past, and they are, telling their mind how to do the undo button there. So whenever they were stuck in some negative states, obviously they were less happy. But interestingly, they were more happy when they were focused on the task at hand as compared to fantasizing about something pleasant. So statistically significantly more happy even when they are just, washing the dishes and totally focused on how to wash the dish, or washing their car, or, I don't know, whatever else they were doing, commuting perhaps. So that's interesting result. The second interesting result was that more often than not, people were spending more time in the negative space. So whenever their mind wandered, more often than not, it'll end up wandering into the negative territory. So they would be more often thinking about something negative in some negative space, something unpleasant. Very rarely people would plan, but their mind would, wander into something pleasant. So mind wandering, whenever it happens, would make you more, take you to the more negative space, and hence make you more unhappy. And they showed that, they further showed that, I think they also have in this paper, have a very nice chart about different countries and which countries are more mind wandering, apparently, because they did data collection of across 80 countries. The USA tops the list in terms of mind wandering. We are mind wanders too much, I guess. And you may think that, what's the big deal? It's just mind wandering. When you're trying to focus on something, your mind wanders, big deal, you bring it back. That's exactly true. And as long as, again, remember that control of the flashlight, control of your attention, as long as you have the control of the flashlight, absolutely, no big deal. You can bring your attention back to whatever you're focused on. And sometimes it might even give you great ideas. The problem is that when we lose that control of the flashlight, when your mind wanders, you have an exam tomorrow, or you're preparing for a big business meeting, or, more often than not, you're talking to your spouse and you're trying to focus on what they're doing, but your mind wanders into something completely different, and, your relationship suffers. But if the mind wandering goes to a point where you can't control it anymore, and it spends more and more time in the negative territory, then it can cause ruminative tendencies. And when they become maladaptive, meaning you can't change them anymore, you can't control them anymore, that could lead to clinical depression, and you get to some other psychiatric disorders. So mind wandering on its face may look like not a big deal, And you're absolutely right. It's not a big deal as long as you have the control of the flashlight. The minute you lose that control, then it could wreak havoc before you know it. So how do you get the attention control back? Meditation. But what is meditation? I kind of talked about it already. Sorry, I'm going a little bit faster now. I just realized I don't have much time. The meditation is, as I said earlier, is this idea of keeping your focus or focusing your attention on one thing. And you can imagine whenever we sit and meditate, one of the biggest problems we have is we get bombarded by thoughts of one kind or another. And every now and then we try to bring our attention back, like, oh, I should focus on the breath. Oh, I'm thinking about whatever, I should come back. What happens to the beginner is they start meditating, and maybe within a few seconds, they get drifted into one thought or the next thought. And it's very hard for them to come back. And many people get disappointed that they can't even control their attention and they give up. They say, oh, meditation is too difficult. I don't want to do it. But in the beginning, it's supposed to be difficult. It's like going to the gym and you're learning to, I don't know, maybe prepare for a marathon, and you do your first, 1 mile run, and you're like, oh my God, it's too hard. How am I going to do like 26 miles for the marathon? And you give up. That's not how you're going to learn it, right? So we start small. So maybe start with 5 minutes of meditation every day and slowly increase it to a point where you can do 20 minutes or 30 minutes of meditation. And you'll be surprised that once you get the hang of it, you want to actually not come out of meditation. You want to enjoy meditation. When you start enjoying, like you can, easily take the analogy of any physical sports or even playing a musical instrument or learning anything in life. In the beginning, it's going to be hard. And it's supposed to be hard because you're training your brain how to do it right. And the brain doesn't want to do it. The mind doesn't want to do it. But once it learns it and then it starts enjoying it, like you could be a crappy cello player or piano player in the beginning, but once you learn it, you enjoy it so much, you don't want to get out of it. You love the flow. You love it so much playing it. The same way, once you start meditation, it'll be hard. But once you learn the control and you can kind of stay in this no thought zone for longer and longer periods, you start enjoying the bliss and you don't want to get out of it then. So please, if it's hard in the beginning, that's the right thing. If it's not hard in the beginning, and let's say you play a music instrument and you learn to music and you say, oh, that's my meditation, and it's not hard at all, that means it's just relaxation. It has to have the component that your mind wanders, you look at it has wandered away, and you bring your attention back. It has to have that muscle exercise. Otherwise, you're not really training your mind with anything. You're just relaxing. And relaxing is good. We should relax all the time, but as much as we can. But training the mind to control attention is even more important, because then you don't even need to relax in a way, because you don't get stressed out that easy. Sorry, does that make some sense? Any questions about that part? And another way of defining meditation in psychology is just a typical name. We call it cognitive control. And the idea there is your ability to flexibly guide behavior based on whatever goals you have while overcoming other tendencies. And it's, we exercise cognitive control throughout the day. Something as simple as, driving your car, you see a stop sign, hopefully you stop. And doesn't matter how late you are for the meeting, you actually stop your car, and then, let people cross the street or whatever, and then you go. So we use cognitive control throughout the day, many times in the day. And basically during meditations, you can imagine when you're sitting with your eyes closed, when there's no external stimulus, and you just focus on, the breath, or you're looking in front of the darkness, whatever. And you try to stay there, and your mind wanders away, and you bring attention back. You wander away, you bring attention back. So in a matter of 5 minutes, you might exercise that cognitive control like 100 times. And imagine doing it over and over, day after day after day, that your mind learns that I don't need to wander. I can just stay there without thoughts. And that's a blissful space, because you're not worried about anything with a no thought case. You're not, cursing anyone. You're just enjoying the state where there are no thoughts, no anxiety. Another example, meditation is nothing but cognitive control. So you're trying to meditate, and any meditation for that matter, it doesn't really matter which meditation technique that is, as long as it has the component of focusing your attention. If it wanders, you bring it back. A few minutes later, people try it. If they're very tired, they might go into sleepitation, which is not meditation. It's just another name for relaxation, which you may have seen people like dozing off and like just snoring just because they're too tired. Their mind can't focus anymore. But that is still better than kind of going into the thought space, because at least here you're getting relaxed. Here you're just getting bombarded by thoughts. But with practice, you can go back and stay longer in these meditation zones as much as possible. And the reason meditation helps us in everything else in life is because, just taking one example here, let's say you're trying to study, the same thing happens, you're trying to focus, a few minutes later, you go into this mode of research, which is similar to sleepitation, or your mind wanders and you may think I'm going to have 10 cups of coffee, but at the end of the day, it's just practice there too. You practice again and again and again, and your mind finally learns to do the job, and you succeed if it's an exam or something, or you're preparing for some business meeting, or you can replace this with like learning a new musical instrument like a piano. In the beginning, it's pretty hard and we don't want to do it, or our mind wanders. But with practice, we just get good at it. We get better at it. Same way with practice, you get great at meditation. But the benefit of meditation is, which is not true for like say learning piano, is when you learn to meditate, then you can, what we call it, transfer learning or spillover. So when you enhance your muscle of attention control during meditation, that helps you with everything else you do in life. So that's the best part about meditation. It's not just that you gain during meditation, but you also gain with everything else you do. Is an ideal amount of time? Emma asked a question, is there an ideal amount of time while practice to meditate? Yeah, so the longer is possible. Ideal amount of time, I would say the longer you can do, the better. But if you're a beginner, maybe start with 5-10 minutes. And then if you realize that in the initial 5 or 10 minutes, now you can actually stay focused for maybe a couple of minutes out of those 5 minutes, then increase the time. Maybe now do 10 and then 15 and then 20. So I recommend starting with 5, but if you can reach 30 minutes of continuous sitting, like one sitting of 30 minutes, that's the best. I mean, the longer is even better, but 30 minutes is a great goal. If you can reach there every day, day after day, you will see benefits, in real time. And nobody has to tell you do more. You will realize it kind of becomes like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush teeth in the morning, we feel yuck. The same way, if you don't meditate, you will realize, wow, I can clearly see that my mind wandering is coming back up, and you start meditating again. So we start enjoying it. That's the beauty of meditation. Like, nobody has to convince you that you should meditate. So if you're doing it accurately, you should start enjoying it after maybe 10-20 days when you get the hang of it. So if you're not enjoying it after 20 days, maybe you're not doing it right. So think about that. So it's something that should give you bliss, because you're not bombarded by thoughts. You should enjoy it so much. Why would you want to get out of it? Kind of state. And if you're reaching that state, that's your progress bar. That's great. But don't get disappointed, because many times it's not easy to accurately do meditation. And there are so many different meditation techniques out there. They all call themselves meditation, whereas there could be something as simple as relaxation and not meditation. So let me share a very simple technique with you, which has that cognitive control component, and hopefully that'll help. So very quickly, let me take you through the scientific evidences. So there's a whole branch of neuroscience now called contemplative neuroscience, which deals with changing brain plasticity, gene expressions, brain-body interaction, and even behavioral changes associated with meditation practice. So more people meditate, they see changes in all 4 domains. And this particular study is my favorite, so I'll just take a few minutes, maybe 3 minutes explaining it, and then let's meditate after that. So in the study, this was done inside an fMRI scanner. This is like the big machine where we can measure your brain activity while you're lying down. This was done at the University of Wisconsin in Madison by Antoine Lutz and Richie Davidson and the group. And what they wanted to do in this task was they wanted to measure if people who claim to be long-term meditators, the so-called experts who have been meditating for hours and hours in their life, how do they deal with anxiety versus novices who have never meditated before? So how do you measure anxiety? So they said, okay, we're going to put people inside the scanner, this machine, and we measure the brain activity, and they will give them a band. It's like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch kind of band. But the cool thing about the band is that you can control the temperature of the band. So you can make it warm, the scientists can make it warm, or they can make it very hot to the point where it's kind of pinching. It's not no fun. You hate it. So they had a way of if making it warm, and every time the band would become warm, there is a probability, 20% probability that you can get a shock. So 80% of the time there is no shock. The band is warm, stays warm, goes away, no pain whatsoever. But 20% of the time, and you don't know when, 2 out of 10 times, it's going to give you a shock, and you have no idea when the shock is actually going to happen. And that is how they kind of manipulated the anxiety part. That when people who don't know how to handle anxiety, the band starts to warm up, will their brain behave as if it's already in shock, even when the shock hasn't come yet? And more importantly, when the shock goes away, or equally importantly, when the shock goes away, does your brain goes back to normal right away, or stays in and behaving like it's still in the shock? So anxiety in the beginning part, and dwelling or ruminating on what has happened in the later part. And then they also asked people how painful was the shock as the shock came, and how unpleasant the shock was. And they showed that novices and experts, they both found the pain to be the equal level, but unpleasantness or suffering of the shock was much less in meditation experts. But more importantly, this is the finding coming from the brain, an area called anterior insula. And there are 4 rows here, 4 lines here. Red and yellow are experts when the band got warmed up but never got a shock. Red is when actually did get the shock. Green is novices when the band got warmed up. Blue is when the band got warmed up and the shock actually came. And the main focus is right here. I hope you can see the mouse pointer. It's between 0 and 20 seconds, or right before 20 seconds, when the band just got warmed up, but no shock has come yet. And people who were novices, their brain was behaving as if it's already in shock. Even when there was no shock, like green line. The green line was supposed to stay at baseline because there's no shock. So why is their brain already acting as if it's in shock? And in case of meditators, when the shock did come, it's not like they don't recognize the shock anymore. Their brain acts as if it's in a shock. So higher activity means the brain is recognizing the shock, and then it comes back to normal right after the shock is gone. And that is an ideal brain. This is, or in other words, no anxiety brain, but it has the anxiety or the effect of the pain when the pain actually occurs, but then it goes back to normal right away. And they've shown in this paper that people who have been meditating for a long time, not only that they can better handle anxiety, the brain can better handle anxiety, but also that they don't dwell in something that happened in the past and kind of come back to the baseline as soon as possible. This is one of the very rare, beautiful experiments that show how amazing meditation can be directly in handling anxiety. There are some other papers I'll skip because I want to meditate, but basically people have shown that meditation slows down brain aging. One of our own work was part of the Shamatha project when I was in grad school, where we had people meditate for about 6 hours every day for 3 months. This is one of the, I think, only meditation study which has had intensive meditation practice like this. It's about 540 hours. This picture is from the Shambhala Mountain Meditation Center, Denver, Colorado. This Shamatha project was led by one of my PhD co-advisors, Clifford Saron from UC Davis. And they also showed that intensive meditation practice can slow down aging, but you don't necessarily need to do 6 hours every day. It's great if you can, but there are other papers out there that show that just 20 minutes of meditation can give you plenty of cognitive and health benefits. Sorry, I'm skipping all these. This is my boss, PhD advisor, Cliff, and you probably know this guy. And we also showed in the same study that the mind wandering reduces after that much meditation practice. Okay, to summarize, reduce mind wandering. It can make you mindful truly and not mindful of stuff. It can help you with your emotion and affect as well. So without further ado, and apologies again for my delay in starting the talk, but if there are no questions, let's quickly meditate for 5 minutes. And this particular meditation technique, as I said, is my favorite. I've been practicing it for almost 26 years now. And the reason I love it so much is it's simple, especially for beginners. So here are the 4 steps. Step 1, you find a quiet spot. Sit in any pose that's comfortable. Don't lie down because it's very easy to go to sleep if you lie down. Close your eyes gently, look straight ahead. So when your eyes are closed, you're looking into the darkness, let's say about 8 to 10 inches in front. And you're kind of looking from your mind's eye. You're not using your physical eye anymore. So because your eyes are shut and you're looking into this darkness in front of you. And the idea is to be aware of the darkness. That's it. That's where you keep your attention. So you're not focusing on breath or other, uh, aspects of the physiology. You're focusing on this mental, in a way, it's a mental object because you're looking through your mind's eye and you're looking at the darkness and you're not visualizing anything. You're not hoping to see something. You're just being aware of whatever is there. That's it. That's the actively seeing part. So with your eyes closed, you're just looking at the darkness and you're just there with your mind's eye and you just actively be aware of whatever you see. So if you close your eyes and you see darkness, and you just be aware of the darkness, and that's it. And you stay there as long as possible. And when your attention wanders, you bring it back, wanders, you bring it back. And just to help you, assist you with staying there, you mentally, very carefully, but mentally, not out loud, mentally repeat any word that you feel comfortable with. So you can say, pick a word like love, peace, something that's neutral, rather than picking a word like, I don't know, Tesla or stocks or something like that. But pick a word that brings peace to you. So it could be just even a sound or a word for love in a different language like Spanish, like amor. And just keep repeating that word while keep your attention in front. And whenever your attention lapses, you bring it back very gently. So in the interest of time, may I suggest let's do it for 5 minutes. And I'll keep the time and I'll get you out of this meditation in exactly 5 minutes. Please leave off. Sorry, I just realized we're already at 7 o'clock. So I'm cutting it short to just 3 minutes of meditation. Hopefully you had a chance to try it out, even though very briefly. But I think Pam just posted this link. So we have these free meditation workshops that you can join and basically practice with meditation, practice with other people who have tried it before and check it out. And it's super simple, but at the same time, it's if you do it right, it's supposed to be difficult. So it'll get you that component of cognitive control that we talked about. I'm going to end with a couple of books. None of them were mine, unfortunately, not yet, at least. There's this book, Attention Revolution, amazing book by Alan Wallace, who's a Buddhist monk. A beautiful book, as I already talked about, Beyond the Self. And one of the amazing books called Detox the Mind by Rajinder Singh. And this actually has this beautiful set of exercises that you can kind of tab your own negative emotions and see how they disappear as you start meditating. Highly recommend this as an exercise book. And here's a link, as I mentioned earlier, and then I'll put the YouTube link in the chat box for my talk, and I'll put my email again. So if you have any questions, please ask me. And I didn't get much questions today, but I'm still here. I can stay here for another 10 minutes